Keep your eyes on me. Keep your eyes on me. Bellow on the bellow on the.
You could get millions of dollars and be broke. How many hoopers, how many NFL players, they get to the bag only to fumble it in the fourth quarter? Money does not mean anything if you don't know how to appropriate it.
Bellow on the bellow on the.
Take advantage of it, man. Ask questions, but most importantly, be attentive, man.
What's up? My name is Justice Hauser, CEO and founder of Skyrocket Social Media Marketing LLC and inaugural member of the Tulsa Leadership Academy and Shark Tank. On September 12th at 7 p.m., I'll have the opportunity to share my business plan and compete for startup funding from Shark Tank Live. Over the last 8 weeks, I've had the opportunity to gather with young Black entrepreneurs from around the country to gain mentorship and training from some of the top minds in business around the world about our business plans, really working out how to master each part of the business process, and overall just facilitate thought around our businesses and what we can really be. With all that being said, the mission does not stop there though. The Tulsa Initiative cannot function without our loyal supporters and people who donate and share our mission with others, which is to cultivate minds to change lives. So please share using Cash App, our text to give application, or navigate to the donation page on our website. Thank you.
What's going on? I am Benjamin Powell, the founder of the Black Psyche and a participant in the Tulsa Initiative Leadership Academy. The Leadership Academy is a fellowship that caters to young Black male entrepreneurs seeking to provide them with financial literacy and a strong foundation to start and maintain their small business. After each fellowship, all of the participants will have the opportunity to participate in the Tulsa Shark Tank. Speaking of the Tulsa Shark Tank, this Saturday, September 12th, 7 p.m. live, myself and 6 other participants will have the opportunity to participate in a Tulsa Shark Tank. The mission cannot continue to be carried out if it's not for you and your generous contributions. So here's a few ways to give. You can text to give, you can Cash App, you can even navigate your way through the Tulsa Initiative website and click that donation button. Please share this information with your family, with your friends, with your co-workers, or anyone who understands and supports the mission to cultivate minds and to change lives. Thank you, and please support.
What's going on, Tulsa nonprofit family? I'm Dean Ray Sykes Jr., Director of Logistics and Engagement here at the Tulsa Initiative, and I'm your co-host for our Tulsa Roundtable. The Tulsa Roundtable is a panel web series set to amplify Black entrepreneurship, women bosses, and Black student leadership. Our goal is to reimagine what successful Black and Brown communities can and should look like. This week, we have Black student leadership. The Tulsa Initiative Incorporated is a nonprofit organization that utilizes mentorship and education to cultivate young minds, preparing them to change lives. The Tulsa Initiative Incorporated was established to answer 2 essential questions. 1, how can African Americans understand the value of circulating the Black dollar in Black communities? And 2, how can African Americans create unity to invest in ourselves? Our mission is to introduce millennials to positive role models, to develop intellect, and to build positive attitudes and a healthy mindset. We believe that through this initiative, entrepreneurial leaders will emerge and make a significant positive impact in the Black communities. And with that, I would love to welcome everyone to our first and ever Tulsa Initiative Roundtable. So next, I would love to introduce LB, our programs coordinator, to the team.
What's going on, my beautiful, powerful, loving, wealthy, successful, and generous queens and kings? My name is Lamar Butler, aka LB the Motivator, and I am the second half of this amazing duo that is doing the Tulsa Roundtable. Listen, this is going to be an amazing experience. It's going to be a series of panel discussions, series of just talks that are going to give you the pieces that plant the seed of entrepreneurship in your life. You're going to gain so much from this, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be partnered with Dean. We're going to do some amazing work. I promise you, you don't want to miss out on any episode. You don't want to miss none. So go ahead, set your timers, 7 p.m. every 2 weeks. We are going to be here. Go ahead, put it on your calendar right now. Put it on your calendar right now to know that we are to tune in. And if you love what you see, if you love what you hear, please do not hesitate to donate to the Tulsa Initiative. All donations will continue to push forward the mission, and we are going to continue to cultivate the minds. We're going to liberate people with freedom, from financial freedom, by giving them the access to entrepreneur skills. So please don't forget to donate. I love you all, and please stay tuned for this episode.
Thank you so much, LB, for that wonderful introduction. And now I think it's appropriate to introduce our two panelists. And these are two people that I've definitely grown so much with, and I definitely look up to in so many different ways. And that I truly do believe that these two people are doing amazing work in their communities on and off campus. With that's being one of my closest friends since 7th grade, or being someone that I have grown so close with in the last year and a half. So first, I'll allow Erica Annabelle to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Dean. It's a pleasure to be here, and I love the work the Tulsa Initiative is doing. My name is Erica Annabelle Clark, and I am an honors sophomore, political science major, and legal communications and English double minor from Long Island, New York, attending the illustrious Howard University, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Eric. And I think the next person would be amazing to be on this panel too. So Josh.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Dean, for having me. As a Tulsa native, I definitely support the work that the Tulsa Initiative is doing. I am Joshua Edwards. I'm a sophomore mass communications major from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I attend the Jackson State University.
I love it. I love it. I think we can go ahead and get to the questions. So my first question, what was your journey like to your specific university? Was it simple and straightforward, or was it a little bit more complex?
Personally speaking, I would say that my journey to my institution was more complex in a sense. Just being that the institution that I attended was not my original choice. It took a lot of thought, but as scholarships started to roll in, it was pretty much simple and straightforward. But just, I would say more on the complex stuff.
For me personally, I would say it's quite a bit of a mixture of both. A lot of the work that I did in high school was surrounded. I went to a performing arts high school. I went to LaGuardia, and it's based in New York and Manhattan. And transitioning from a arts-based learning environment to a political science, College of Arts and Science, and liberal arts environment was a little bit different. And to be able to cultivate a motivation to pursue a degree outside of the arts and not go to conservatory was a little bit different, especially going to LaGuardia, and a lot of the students that I was surrounded by went to conservatory. So I would say it was a little bit difficult, but once I got the hang of it, my transition to college was a little bit more easy. And I think a lot of the organizations that I worked with and the people and mentors that I've had made that process a lot easier as well.
I love it. And so that kind of ties into our next question, which is, explain your current student leadership at your specific universities.
Currently, my student leadership on Jackson State University campus, I've had the honor of serving as a social media chairperson for two of my organizations, and those organizations are the Insatiable Modeling Squad of Jackson State University, as well as the Lambda Sigma Honor Society. I have previously had the honor of currently serving as Jackson State's Mr. Sophomore, which serves as a class representative for the class of 2023. Also, this past summer, I've had the privilege of serving as a Welcome Week leader for incoming freshmen to make their transition smoother than mine for the 2020-2021 academic school year.
That is amazing. I love to hear it. It's just a chef's kiss. Personally, on my college campus, I started off in Freshman Leadership Academy. So it's a cohort where they pick 50 students. We do some mentorship. We do some career readiness and learning immersion programs. And it's an amazing program for freshmen. And from there, I went on to our student association, and I served as the coordinator for student advocacy. From there on to this year, I currently serve as the vice president for an amazing nonprofit entitled HBCU Imprint Incorporated. And what we do is geared for first generation student success. We offer mentorship, resources, panels, and workshops to bridge the gap between first generation students and traditional students on college campuses at HBCUs around the country. Additionally, I currently serve as the historian for the Houston Senate Association, which Dean Ray also serves as a senator. And I also serve as the community service coordinator for the 1867 assistantship program, which I'm also in with Dean Ray. So.
No, I love it. It just shows, like, how important it is for all of us to be in certain positions of power, that we're not, seeking to be in the power, but it's a platform to really serve students, and it's really, serving leaders. So I always think that student leadership is much more important than just a simple position for clout or building a reputation. So what is y'all's take on student leadership?
100%. I think on HBCU campuses, especially those that are geared to student leadership and essentially a smaller space, because HBCUs are inherently a little bit smaller, and the demographic of students is very similar. So a lot of people need to stand out, right? As opposed to a traditional campus where there's a very small pool of students of color, or there's a very small pool of diversity. So the things that you do automatically stand out, whereas on an HBCU campus, it's more in tune that you have to assume a student leadership role to get some kind of recognition on campus. And I think that's both great, but also a recipe for failure in terms of what these students bring to these student leadership positions, and that's something that we see a lot. So what I look for in terms of student leadership is, if you're going to be in this position, what are you going to contribute in this position? A title means nothing. A title means nothing to me, and I think it should be that way for other people. It's about what are you going to leave? What will you leave behind? So the motto of HBCU, which is the nonprofit that I work for, is what will you leave behind? What is it that what's the legacy that you're leaving? What are the footsteps you want people to follow after you leave? And I think the contribution to these student leadership positions needs to be the primary focus, rather than the title that you get from these student leadership positions as well.
I love that, and John.
I definitely agree with the both of you. I definitely stress the fact that our spotlight is not good clout spotlight. I feel like when it comes to student leadership, like she said, you have to focus on what can you contribute to your institution, what can you contribute to your university. Because when you're put in that position to contribute those ideas, or to contribute those goals you have set for your institution, people are going to be looking toward you for guidance. When you're put into leadership, I don't want to say that you will have followers, but you're going to have people watching you every move. You're going to have people, what is our next move? And so people can spot passion, or people can spot phoniness easily. So when it comes to student leadership, you have to be selfless. You have to be genuine. And you have to just be willing to kind of just be able to ignore or what other people are saying, for lack of a better term. So, yeah.
No, I definitely agree with both of you guys. I think, especially what I've noticed on our campus, Erica, is that, I think a lot of people are looking for like an upping of status. And so they see a student leadership position as not student leadership, but actually like a position of power that's creating like a kleptocracy, like oligarchy. Like you don't want that in like being a public servant. That's kind of like, like a literal image of Donald Trump. And so I don't know, to me, I think it should be much more organic and genuine. So that kind of goes to the next question. What has prepared both of you most for your current student leadership positions?
I would say my experience. Your experience plays a lot, especially being a follower. I had the opportunity as an incoming freshman, I had the opportunity of looking at other leaders and just kind of experiencing the campus as a whole. I can't be a leader in a position if I haven't experienced or I can't, or I haven't identified what I can contribute. I can't be a leader in a situation that I don't know anything about. So experience played a major role into, like in my leadership position. I was able to identify what I can contribute to Jackson. I was able to understand what I felt like I was missing a part of my class, or what I felt like I was missing at Jackson State University. And I was able to like, okay, this is the three things, or these are the things I would like to contribute to Jackson State University. So that's just kind of what influenced my leadership.
I would say my leadership is a microcosm of all of the leaders who have led me, right? So growing up, I was always surrounded by people who were genuine. I don't think a lot of them got recognition for the amount of work that they put in crafting who I am today and who a lot of people around me are today as well. And I think having genuine people around you creates or crafts a genuine love for service, a genuine love for leadership that doesn't need to be recognized. And I think that's what drives my leadership. It's the people that I've been surrounded by, my mom, my sister, like some of the hardest working women in my life are amazing, and they completely craft who I am and how I approach situations of service and leadership. Additionally, I'm a creative, right? So leadership in the creative sector looks a little different. And I think it has a lot of emphasis on the individual. We don't usually work as a collective, and working as a collective is a little bit hard in the creative sector. And I think going to a performing arts school and working and being forced to work with people, whether it's in a choir or it's in a production, has definitely crafted my leadership as well. It's about the organization. It's about the execution rather than like what you're regarded for, because you might be working on an amazing project, right? And it might be a headline. It might be a headline show, but if the execution is not down, if you don't put in the time, the effort, the care, the intricacy that you need for this production to go well, it won't matter. And that's the kind of vision that I see in terms of leadership as well. If the execution's not there, if the purpose isn't there, if the intent isn't there, then it doesn't matter. So that's what's definitely have crafted my leadership, the way that I view leadership.
No, I definitely love both of your responses. And I think, Erica, you said something very particular. You said in genuine friend groups or genuine groups. And someone told me the other day, they were like, when you surround yourself with genuine people and those genuine friend groups overlap, that's when you know you're doing something right. And I think it's very tough for a lot of people who move into different environments, because they definitely see how, like, sometimes they have their genuine friends, but they also have these like very, opposite friends. And it's very tough for them to navigate that. So I'm glad that both of you all have that. For our next question, I think it's important to know the times that we're in. I think it's important to know that we're not in a normal time of life and society. And so, how is it important to you personally, being a Black student leader during this time of racial unrest, political propaganda, and a national pandemic?
So everything that we're experiencing currently are disproportionately affect the Black community. That's the bottom line. There's no refuting that point. And so as a Black student leader, it's turmoil. We can't be euphemistic about what we face as Black student leaders, Black organizers, Black leaders in general during this time, because we're tied between feeling the effects of what's happening, but also tied between having some kind of commitment to at least remedy some of the effects for the same communities that we might be a part of. And so that's what's the hardest. So when we see that civil unrest and it's all over our Twitter timeline, we are feeling it as Black people, right? We're feeling oppressed. And even in the Black community, our different intersections make up what that oppression feels like, right? But at the same time, we are sometimes forced to have to overlook it to find a solution for the communities that we serve, the communities that we dedicated our time, our lives sometimes to serve and remedy. And so it's a little bit hard as a Black student leader to handle being Black and being a leader and being an organizer at the same time. But it's our job, and we kind of suck it up and do it anyways. For voting right now, I've seen it a lot. There are organizers out there doing the work. We saw it in the polls, and it was absolutely amazing to see from the back end, but also amazing to participate in as a first-time voter in a presidential election. So those are the kind of dynamics that we're working with. Feeling the effects of something, but also having to contribute to the change and to the process is a little bit harder, but I think it gives us the motivation we need to succeed.
I definitely agree with you in regards to feeling the kind of the conflict or the grapple between the emotional state and also what's occurring in society. I feel like at this time it's important to me because I'm being watched more than ever. I feel like during this time of chaos, a lot of Black students or Black leaders in general are being looked at as a whole. We're putting positions where we can use our voice, because it was a time where Black people weren't giving the privilege to use their voice. For example, we have Twitter. We were able to generate a Black Lives Matter movement, but with the tips of our fingers. So that means that we have the nation viewing Black people and Black leaders. So personally, it's important to me to be a role model, not only for myself, but for my community, for my society, and for the Black culture as a whole.
I think something that important that was brought up is the intersection of issues that, we may be Black, but it's also, we're not a monolith. We also have so many other, identity markers that, affect us in different areas, and how, more people, specifically Black women, and even more so Black trans people, they're going through so many different heavier things than what a regular Black man would do, a cis straight Black man would do. And so that kind of goes into like our next question of, what are some identity markers that you identify with that make you a leader, that makes your leadership so important beyond just being Black?
I can go first. I love how we wait. We're like, that's such an amazing question, and I love questions like this, because one thing that I have learned since going to Howard, we read that Kimberly Crenshaw, and we learn about intersectionality, and we bring it up in every space, shape, and form that we can. Okay, because that's my thing. But identifying as a woman is important to my leadership always, because it means that the way that I lead is criticized. It's criticized in spaces, especially spaces that are largely male and largely cishet male. Additionally, being a first generation citizen, my parents, my family are not from here. The way that I approach the education system, the way that I approached American culture is different. It's been different since I was a kid. I went outside and saw a different culture from what I came back to. And so I had to develop this dynamic approach to what it meant to be in America. And I had to do that for my family as well. So this presidential election is the first election that all of my family were able to vote in, because they had just gotten their citizenship. After I'm 19, they've been here before me, like 20 years of being in the US. So those things matter to me. And that also matters because approaching school, the education system here is different from back home or where my parents come from, and even my sister. So that also contributes to me feeling like I'm a first generation student, and then also having to work on HBCU imprint and guide other first generation students to student success and making sure their matriculation looks good. There's so many different identity markers that we all carry all day, whether they're conscious or subconscious, whether it's a trauma that we've been through, something that we've seen over the past couple of years, partisanship that we may have, that unknown bias that we may have. Those are all identity markers. And I think all of them are important in the way that you lead. It's impossible to lead without those identity markers being a guiding influence in the way that you lead as well.
I wholeheartedly agree when you say there are multiple identity markers that we all appeal to, but one that I am very passionate about is just being a male, and not only just a Black male, but a male in general. I feel like as males, personally Black males, I can say that's my personal experience, that our manhood is often questioned, that our power is often questioned. Especially when it comes to people understanding masculinity and its fluidity. I've always had a passion with showing people that a Black male is more than a rapper. A Black male is more than a football player. I just want to showcase to younger Black males, including myself, that masculinity is fluid, as well as show them that I am not limited to what society says or what my neighborhood says. So that is one identity marker that I feel is very important, is just being a voice for many Black males like myself.
Justin, I think you hit on something really important. You said, masculinity is fluid. And I think that oftentimes we're conditioned by society to believe that, if you're a part of one group, that group is a monolith and that you are all the same. However, I think a lot of our social issues is on a spectrum. So masculinity is on a spectrum, sexuality is on a spectrum. However, I think that we, as a society, limit that to just being one type of way, and that leads us into being ignorant to what that actually means. Especially, I think for me, being in growing up in the hood in North Tulsa and really like we had these certain stereotypes of that you weren't an athlete if you weren't making a song, that you weren't a real man. And that really like stays with our Black community through our whole entire life. So we're 25 years old. We're trying to, as Black men, kill Black trans people because we believe that they're somehow not human or whatever the case is. And I think that really limits but that plays a part into the agenda of the white oppression that we have in this society. So I definitely appreciate that point, Josh. Now, for my next question, it's a little long, but I think that it definitely is precedent to the time. So on October 26th, Amy Coney Barrett was sworn into the United States Supreme Court, pushing the conservative majority of the Supreme Court to 6-3. Being that many of the policies pushed will not be in favor of people of color, what do you see your role in student leadership being with developments like these in our current democracy?
I see my role in student leadership not necessarily being the same. However, the foundation of my leadership being the same, but my approach to it being different. I feel like as a Black people, we're not facing or experiencing leaders or policies that are against people of color. This is nothing new to us. I feel like as being a leader, I feel like I should continue what I've been doing. What I've been doing has been working, which is utilizing my voice. I feel like Black leaders have done a great job on utilizing the voice. As I previously stated, is that we've utilized Twitter and social media in general as a way to highlight policies or injustices that we face and to bring awareness to those situations. However, I do feel like to address those issues, not only utilize our voice, but we should also educate ourselves. I feel like within the Black community, we don't often educate ourselves on policies or injustices, but we do have a voice on it. But I feel like if you're going to be vocal on something, you have to understand the complexity of it. So I feel like we should educate ourselves not only on those policies, but on what's going on in society. And then what can you contribute as an individual? What can you contribute? What can Joshua contribute? What can D-Ray contribute to this situation to impact it in a positive manner?
I loved everything you said. If you know me, you know I'm a policy nerd. I sit there and I talk about policy all day, every day. It's my job, it's my leisure, it's my hobby. And so for me to understand what I can contribute as a student leader or as a leader or an organizer, I have to understand what it means, what the implications of Barrett being confirmed are. So she's a threat to abortion rights. She's a threat to Affordable Care Act, gun control, climate regulation, and so many other progressive causes based on her legislative history and her views as a legal scholar. I mean, she has criticized the Miranda's decision, which requires that people know what they're being arrested for and that they are informed their rights. And she even takes the most extreme view of not believing in judges adhering to precedent. So those are some major changes, and she has the lives of people at her hand. She can crush it, she can open it, she can extend resources, she can do so much. And so as student leaders, it can feel like we can do nothing. But for me, I think I take the policy approach because I am a political science major. And so I look at organizations that I can lobby with. I look at what lobbying looks like on that Supreme Court level. I look at things like that because I need to look at what I'm doing in my field, what I'm learning in school, and contribute that to my goals as an organizer or as a student leader. And I think everyone needs to do that. We talk a lot about intersection. The field that you study in is your intersection as well. I may be a political science major, but someone else may be a tech guru. Look at Silicon Valley, lobby on behalf of them, lobby on behalf of privacy rights, lobby on behalf of anything that you can that fits inside of your field. If you're a healthcare worker, make sure that you're giving people access to healthcare and proper healthcare. If Affordable Care Act is being threatened, lobby for it. Make sure that you're an appropriate person to go to if people have questions about insurance or about their healthcare in general. There are so many different things that we can do. And I think because a lot of the time student leadership or leadership as a whole looks a little monolithic, we forget that the intersection that we are in, plus the fields that we are studying, our interests, our hobbies, and our motivations, all contribute to what we can do as a student leader, especially in a time where our rights could be threatened at any given moment.
Erica, you brought up a great point about lobbying. I think as constituents, we need to know that we can lobby on the issues that we care about and the issues that intersect and overlap in our communities. I believe that we probably sometimes think that we don't have that kind of power, we don't have that kind of like importance, but we're the ones that gave those politicians those jobs. They're not like some God-like creatures that we're like walking under. No, we gave them their jobs, we pay them. So I think it's extremely important to lobby, not only on just one or two issues, but every issue, because they all overlap at some point. But Josh, you brought up something very important. You said, as Black people, we must educate ourselves and understand the complexity of these issues. I think it's very important because, there's a quote that says, demonstration without legislation is just ignorant. It doesn't make sense. Like for those people who are protesting in the streets, but are not, talking to their senators and their representatives and not, banging at the doors, calling their phone numbers. That is like letting them know that like they can close their blinds, they can like close their ears and like not even hear what we're actually having to say. So our protesting isn't going to do anything. So I really do believe that, this change that we hope to have has to come from lobbying. It has to come from educating ourselves, and it has to come from us being at the front line of these issues always for all oppressed groups. So for my next question, ties in again. I think this is a very important conversation. Being that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won the presidential election from the overwhelming amount of Black votes in Detroit, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, what do you think that says about Black people in this country?
It says your Black vote matters. It says that organizers are doing their work. It says that we are the change. It's incredible. Okay, this is the first election that I've gotten to vote in. The first presidential election that I've gotten to vote in. And I had the honor of being able to work this year, and I'm still working with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, especially in the Voting Rights Project, and then in election protection. We are doing the work. Organizers there are doing the work 24/7 all around the year. We're planning it. You may see these smaller organizations jump out of your face for these voting rights initiatives, and it's great too, but you need to be tapping into the organizers and the organizing communities that are doing the work year round. We have flipped so many states that have not been blue since the 90s. What that means is that voter suppression has been real. It means that organizers are currently battling voter suppression, and they're doing a damn good job doing it. And it also means that your vote always matters. So whether it is because of electioneering or voter intimidation, or someone is knocking at your door telling you if you go vote, something's going to happen to you, there are organizations out here that are going to help you. You call 866-I-VOTE, you call Election Protection, you call When We All Vote, you call Color of Change, you call these organizations, you lobby on behalf of yourself, you lobby on behalf of your vote, because it matters. It always does, it always has, and we're now seeing it. And voting is and it's the happiest. I'm the happiest I could have possibly been from the outcome of this election, seeing that Black youth carry this election on their backs. Whether it's because they were organizing or because they were out there voting in the cold, voting by mail, doing whatever they could to make sure that their voice was heard during this election.
I may have stressed this a lot, but it definitely shows the power of the Black voice. I can definitely say that it shows our influence as Black people. It shows how powerful we are when we unite as a collective and generate change. It shows us breaking trauma. It shows us breaking just passed down from, our ancestors. A lot of our ancestors felt powerless. A lot of them didn't have, and that's just due to the system that was built to destroy them. But it shows us breaking that chain. So it just shows us, again, like she said, it shows the power of the Black voice, and it shows us that voting matters. One thing I can say that I loved is the youth. I feel like the youth stood up in this election, and they understood. They developed a confidence that we didn't have before. And me being a first-time presidential voter as well, this is my first time voting for the presidential election, I gained a confidence. I gained a sense of knowing that my voice matters and that I'm being heard. So, yeah.
I think that's extremely important what you both guys brought up, because I feel like a lot of times as Black people, we feel like, we know that like our voice isn't heard the way it should be, and that especially like if we have access, weights of oppression on us, being in so many different intersections, being a woman, not only just being Black, but also being a woman, not only being a woman, but also being trans, like these kinds of like levels of oppression. I think that it really makes us feel like this country is not built for us. And it almost makes us feel like, an invisible man, an invisible woman. And I feel like what you all brought up is very important. Like our voice matters, our votes matters, especially like for people that are our age, that are finally being able to vote, that, our vote does matter. And this is our first election, and it proved that. And Black people were the epitome of that. And we showed that to the entire world. The entire world was watching this election to see what was going to happen. And it came down to who? Black people, who are only 13% of this population. And we were the ones that swung this vote around. And so I thank both of you for bringing that up. So take a step back from politics a little bit. So it's a deep conversation. Josh, you being from Tulsa, specifically North Tulsa, and Erica, you being from Long Island, how do you think that has shaped your view of the world entirely?
Personally speaking, me being from Tulsa, it just shows me that, because Tulsa has a lot of history, that I didn't know about previously. So speaking the 1921 race massacre, we weren't growing up in Tulsa. I didn't hear you would think that I would hear about that, that event that took place, but I didn't. So I grew up in a time to where like my culture was suppressed. I didn't know too much about the role that Blacks played in Tulsa. So I guess that overall, just kind of hidden information for me in Tulsa, it just showed me that I had to kind of stand up in a sense. Let me collect my thoughts. But yes, it just showed me that the world is very, how do I put this in like a better sense? The world is very, I don't want to say against me in a sense, but it showed me that the world has a lot of hidden agendas. And as a Black man, I have to kind of exceed expectations. I have to exceed limits. And so it just showed me the real nature of the world, and that the world isn't its true self and how it presents itself.
100%. So I grew up in Long Island, but I never went to school in Long Island. So I would not say, Long Island has been an influence on my life in terms of the privilege of having a house, privilege of having a roof over my head, food to eat, being okay. But a lot of the culture and a lot of the things that I've learned throughout my experience of being a Black woman in America have not come from Long Island, because my parents, my sister, we're all not from here. So being and going to school in America with American children, and I used to go to school in Queens and Manhattan, was a different experience. It was a different experience because when I came back home, that wasn't necessarily what I was learning. It took me a while to adapt to American culture, to be able to immerse myself in American culture, to learn about hip hop, to learn about rap, to learn about what oppression looked like. Because even if I was to leave the house and something were to happen to me, I would come back home and I would be like, Mom, like this happened to me. And be like, why? Because those aren't the race relations that we experience back where we're from. So there's such a cultural difference that I've had to grow to learn. And after I learned it, I realized that I had to be a part of the change. I had to be a part of an initiative to remedy these issues, to make sure that the people around me, the people I cared about, the people in my community, people outside of my community didn't have to experience these kinds of things, because I've seen it from both sides. I've seen it not happen. I've seen, obviously there's classism everywhere, but a lot of that classism in certain places is not based on race. It's literally based on class. Whereas in America, it's classism, racism, and so many different other isms that we have to deal with. And because I've seen both sides of the spectrum, I know what it can be like here. I know what a Black experience can look like. And even if it's not a utopia, it's still better than the experience that we see today. And so growing up in Long Island gave me the privilege to have a comparison, to have a viewpoint, of a reference point of what life can look like for people across the country. And I think that's something that I'll always carry with me till the rest of my life. It's given me access to resources. It's given me access to resources that I can give back to communities that don't have them. I currently live in a district that is ridiculously on polar ends of the resource allocation spectrum. Okay, so there's Hempstead and there's Garden City. If I compared the education statistics to you, you would be appalled. The reading and literacy rate in Hempstead is 54%. In Garden City, it's 94%. You want to know how far away these two places are? 4 minutes. You can drive to Garden City, but you can't go to school there because of zoning. You can't go to school there because of zip codes. And so these like disparities that are inside of the exact same district 4 minutes away are things that motivates me to be a leader. It motivates me to make sure that people have access to good education. It motivates me to be a lobbyist. It motivates me to be an organizer. It motivates me to work hard at Imprint to make sure that first generation students have the access they need to matriculate properly. All of the experiences that we have are motivation. So growing up in Long Island is motivation too, but I think it's more of a reference point. For knowing what resource allocation can look like in an educational spectrum, in a criminal justice spectrum, in a quality of life spectrum, and using that to guide my principles in giving back to communities that don't have that.
Oh, I love it. And Erica, you brought up something that was very important. You said 4 minutes away in their polar opposites. And I know it's astronomical to me because I know Josh can attest to this too. Being in Tulsa, everything's very segregated. Like North Tulsa is very far from South Tulsa, is very far from West Tulsa. So you see these disparities and you're just like, isn't not anybody gonna do anything about this? And so, definitely what I've noticed growing up here with you, Josh, is that we weren't taught about the race massacre. We weren't taught about, our history. We weren't taught about, what our people were going through and the power that we held, being from Tulsa. And so I kind of look at like AOC in New York and I think could that ever happen here? And it's very tough because like, I feel discouraged by our elections this past cycle. We were one of the only states, every city and county in the state of Oklahoma was deep red. And I look at places like New York and California, I'm always inspired. So Erica, I thank you for your points of we have to get involved. We have to stand up. We have to stand up for our communities. We have to be there, when, it feels like the weight of the world is against us. So the next question is a little bit more abstract. It's going to be, what are some of your 3 to 5 year goals that you hope to achieve in Black communities through your leadership work?
Through my leadership work, one thing I would like to just I hope to achieve or I hope to influence is the image of Black men. That is one thing I am very passionate about, as I previously stated. I want to kind of break that cycle of toxic masculinity, of holding Black men to a certain level of success or a standard. I want to be that representation. As a Black man, I can exceed our expectations. I don't have to do with my society. It doesn't have to do with with my neighborhood only see as a certain level of success. And to kind of piggyback off that, I want to show the influence of HBCU. I am a proud HBCU product. I want to show that attending an HBCU is just as effective, if not more effective, as attending other institutions. I want to show that you are capable and that you are prepared for the real world, despite what social media may say, despite what outsiders may say, but I am prepared. That is one thing I would like to achieve, is to show other students in Black communities that attend HBCU, attend schools that were built for you to succeed. Because attending school in high school, we had a lot of football players. We had a lot of students say, I don't want to go to HBCU because you're only going there to party, or oh, you're only going there because you want to be around Black people. You're not, Black HBCUs don't have diversity. And so that is one thing I would like to impact through my leadership, is to show younger Black students that attending an HBCU is okay, and that you are going to be more than prepared for the real world. Third, I would like to just kind of increase the level of confidence of not only Black students, but also of my peers. My campaign was Self versus Self, as I was running for Mr. Sophomore this past spring. And I want to uplift the confidence. One thing I noticed, because this is something I dealt with, just to be transparent, when it comes to just stepping up, as we were speaking, like being vocal, going for leadership positions, being the change that I want to see, I noticed that me and a lot of other Black students and Black youth struggle with confidence. That is one thing that we deal with. So at my time of being in leadership, I want to change the mentality of Blacks in general. I want to change the mentality, because when you change the mentality, then the things around you begin to change. So when you change that lens, your lens, you see what you see is going to be different. So if you see positive, you get positive things. If you see negative, you see negative things. So I just want to change the confidence of Black students and Black youth. So those are 3 things that I would like to change: toxic masculinity, the image of HBCUs, as well as the confidence of Black youth.
Listen, that was amazing. That was great. I love it. I absolutely love it. So some things that I want to change and some goals that I hope to accomplish. I want to start my own nonprofit. So I currently work for a nonprofit. I serve as vice president with the amazing Gabrielle Jackson. She is the president of and founder of this organization that does amazing work at Howard University for first generation students. But I think what I want to do is, education is my passion. As I said, growing up in a county or in a district that's so polar in terms of educational access it's heart-wrenching. And so what I want to do is fix and remedy that issue before they even have to get to higher education. All of the remedies that we see today in terms of educational access happen when it's too late. I'm tired of seeing affirmative action come into play too late. You guys neglect Black youth, low-income youth, minority youth, K through 12, and then keep select spots at select universities to integrate students, and then they're failing, and then they don't have access to resources, and then they're not doing well, they're not proficient, they can't stay, they don't have the finances to stay. Their matriculation is upheaved because they weren't given those resources, they weren't given the financial aid, they weren't given the FAFSA workshops, they weren't given any resources or access to resources before they got there. And it's actually a plague. It's literally an epidemic in our country where people are not prepared to go to higher education, not because they're not smart enough, but because they don't have the resources, the financial ones at that, to make sure that they get there and succeed. That's what I want to change. I want to change it in my district first, and then I want to change it everywhere across this country, because K through 12 students need it too. I'm tired of seeing people wait till students get to 12th grade to then tell them, hey, I have something for you that can help you with your college education process. When they needed the textbooks in 3rd grade, and they needed a mentor in 4th grade. They needed to see someone be proficient in the field that they liked in 5th grade. They needed help with the SHSAT. They needed help with a high school admission when they were in 6th grade. They needed to have an internship when they were in 8th grade. There are things that need to happen before students get to higher education and college, and they need to happen now. And that's why I think, especially starting with HBCUs, because in that HBCU process, once you already get to college, it's remedial. And by remedial, I mean culturally remedial. It gives you a cultural learning immersion experience that students need. All students need it. HBCUs are unique, and I will never, ever, ever regret attending an HBCU. That will be the best decision I've made in my however many years of life I make it to. That is the best decision I've made. And I think all students need to experience that. And that's something that needs to happen before they get to higher education. So I know that's only one goal, but it's a big one, and it's different sectors in it. And so I have to complete all of them. So that's mine.
I absolutely love it. Like, y'all are literally dropping dimes. This is very, very powerful. So we have 3 minutes left, and we have 2 questions left that I just added, I think, organically from what we were talking about. So we can go through these kind of quick. So for both of you guys, what was your biggest failure in student leadership to date, and how have you overcome it?
My biggest, I would say, self-doubt. That is one thing I had to overcome, and that's one thing I feel like we constantly work on as human beings. I had to realize what I can contribute. I feel like a lot of people downplay their talents and their capability. So as a leader, that's one thing that I had to work on. And how did I overcome that? That's simply just realizing who I am and whose I am. As a Christian, I take my relationship with God very important. So I had to realize who I am and whose I am to realize who I am, if that makes sense. So I had to realize that I am a son of a king. So if he's a king, what does that make me? So I just had to realize that that I'm of importance and that I'm of value.
I'm gonna put that quote on the shirt, and I'm gonna wear it. It's gonna put your name underneath, because yes. The biggest failure, and this failure has actually turned into my life motto, the biggest failure, and it's in leadership, it's in self-care, it's in everything, is balance. I didn't know, and it wasn't because I wasn't balancing my work, but I had this absurd notion, right, that in order to be academically proficient, professionally proficient, and to be regarded highly, I had to completely abandon what it meant to be like a social person. I completely abandoned what it meant to be or have a social life. I literally just sat there, worked every day. If it was something, I was on it. Professional 24/7. And it was draining. It was draining and it was hard, but I still did it. And what I realized out of that, and it's still, the consequences are still following me today, is that people see me as a machine. People see me as a machine, and they come to me when they need something. And obviously I'm there to help them, but there's no emotional connection to a lot of people because I did not allow them to see me as a human who can socialize. And at a young age, at 19, it's important for people to know that you can have fun too. So we would be in a setting and I would say something funny and they were like, why, what's happening? Like, she can do that? I'm like, yes. I, in fact, am a little bit human, but it's turned into my life motto, equilibrium. Everything has to have a balance. It doesn't matter what it is. That's my single life motto. It doesn't matter what it is. Whether that's fun and work, whether that's eating something healthy and eating something that's not so healthy, whether that's caring for yourself and caring for others, it doesn't matter. Everything has to be done with a balance. And once you find that balance, and it doesn't mean it has to be 50-50, balance can mean that it's proportional as well. But once you find that balance, you become effective in all of those spaces that you're in because you're giving your all in these spaces equally or proportionally, however it has to be, just finding that equilibrium and that balance. And I think once I found it, I was becoming a more effective student leader who could tap into other people's emotions and be there for them emotionally, as well as I can be there as a professional mentor. And Dean Ray knows this too. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I became friends with Dean Ray, is because we were on very polar opposites. I was like logic, reasoning, and policy. And he was like, Erica, you can have like an emotion sometimes. And I think he's helped me find that equilibrium. And a lot of people on campus that I've surrounded myself with that I'm like eternally grateful for have helped me find that equilibrium as well.
Absolutely love it. And Erica, you're so right. And you helped me so much reach that equilibrium on like a policy and logic standpoint. And no, Josh, like definitely that we need to really understand where like our failures in order to become better. That growth aspect is so important. Our pastor always says, God can't bless who you pretend to be. It's about progression, not perfection. And so that Christian aspect is definitely like so important. So our last question, since we're over time, what advice would both of you give to someone who hopes to become a student leader and more involved in leadership in their communities?
One thing I would say is, this is a question I get often from other from my peers who are looking forward into a leadership. I say, identify something that you can genuinely connect to. So what is it that your institution lacks in that you feel like is a need, that you feel like it has a certain level of importance? For me, it was just, I realized the confidence of my peers, or whether that you feel like the unity at your institution may not be as good. Whatever the case may be, I feel like you should lead with authenticity. You got to be a genuine leader. You have to be a leader of passion. Like I said previously, because people can point out what's fake and what's real. So for anyone who's looking forward to being a leader, I definitely say lead with something you're passionate about.
Yes. Yes, what he said. I asked 3 questions. Why, how, and is it being done already? Why? Because if you don't know why, and if you give me your answer why, and it's because I want recognition on campus, or there's a role that I want to be in, and this is the stepping stone to it, please don't do it. No one needs a BS leader. They don't. We are not looking for a leader to do this or be and sit in this position and do nothing because they need to put it on their resume. How are you going to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish in this leadership position? Is it going to be effective? Is it going to be timely in the allotted time that you have in this position? If not, maybe find something else. And then lastly, are there people doing the work already? That is the biggest issue today with leadership, student leadership, anything in any sector. People are already doing the work, and then someone else goes and does the work. It doesn't work that way. If someone's already doing the work, you join them. You ask them what they need. Being a student leader doesn't mean that you're autonomous. Being a student leader doesn't mean that you're just an individual and that you lead everyone else autonomously. That's not what student leadership is about. Student leadership can happen on a team. Student leadership can happen without your face plastered everywhere. Student leadership does not have to be loud. It can be behind the scenes. Student leadership is as simple as seeing an organization who's already doing the work, asking them if they need a community service coordinator, and working with them to make sure that you guys are planning the most effective and the most beautiful community service initiatives that you can that are helping the communities around you. Student leadership can look like anything. And so once you hold in and you grasp a little bit of that pride, and then find something that you're very passionate about, passionate enough about it that if you're never known for contributing to it ever, you will be content with the change that you're creating or the change that you can see and contributing to, then you do it. If those things do not match, find something else immediately. That's my take on student leadership.
I thank y'all so much. Like this was our first roundtable and y'all made this like everything. So I appreciate y'all so much. Like, and I know that y'all are so busy. Like y'all have your own schedules, like tons of things. So y'all making time for this is like, it means everything. To our nonprofit, to what we're doing at the Tulsa Initiative, to cultivate minds and change lives. So love you guys and I appreciate you. And so any final words at all or?
I definitely want to say that I appreciate you all for having me today. Dean, you did fantastic. Erica, you did as well. I want to just say that I've definitely been watching the things that Tulsa Initiative is doing. And then, like I said previously, as a Tulsa native, I'm very proud to see that this is something that Tulsa has their name on. So again, kudos to you guys. You guys are doing great. I am watching and I'm supporting from the stands. If there anything that I can do, just let me know. But thank you.
I have the exact same sentiments. Thank you guys so much for having me. You guys have a team of amazing people individually, and you guys come together to make a collective team that is doing amazing work. I am not from Tulsa. We know this, right? But if I could pick one other place from New York, if it's not New York, I'd be from Tulsa. I say it all the time. But I'm just so proud of you, Dean Ray, and I'm proud of the Tulsa Initiative, and I'm excited to be a part of this roundtable. And as Joshua said, who has done amazing tonight, and you've been a guiding force. If there's anything that I can ever do to help, I will, because you guys are doing amazing work, and I'm just so proud and happy.
That really means the world to me, both of you guys. Thank y'all so much. And, that is going to conclude our first roundtable. And so I appreciate everybody coming out to support. Thanks again to our panelists, LB and Monte as well. So thank you guys.